So it looks like we have the best Asian CS team we've ever seen, at least since CSGO came out, because the Mongols just beat Astralis. I mean, no spoilers. They just beat Astralis. And you could say that they're definitely about to win the tournament because the team they're about to play is Furia or NIP, which are, Furia is, it's Furia, and NIP, you don't even know who the fuck is on that team, I bet. I bet you couldn't tell me all 5 players on NIP. You can't, okay? The only person I know is Wrinkle, because he won a fucking 1v4, and I was like, that was sick, dog. But their roster is whack, but it looks like these guys are about to win a tournament. And at 910, by the way, I heard he joined this team with like 2,000 hours or something, and he was apparently quite weak when he first joined, but he out-ops Device in this map, in this series, I believe, but in this map as well. And this map, if we look at the bottom here, is 70 minutes long, okay? I understand, guys. I've been trying to keep these a little shorter if I can. Okay, I'm trying not to, because my first couple of reviews were like fucking an hour and a half. Okay, for like a 20-round game. Look, I'm trying my best here. Okay, but the other 2 games in this series were like 13-3, 13-5 or something. They were not close games. Oh my god, this guy is lit, dude. I just saw one shot and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to write it down. This guy's my MVP, dude. You ever see people, they just have like the crispiest aim. It's just like the crosshair goes to the head and there was never a moment where you're like, I'm not sure if this shot's gonna hit. It's like it's like not even robotic. It's just like, it's crispy. It's deep fried, son. Dude, some people just have aim like that. And it's like, I don't even understand. There's no shakiness. There's no like, over flick, under flick. It's just like they get a gun. They're like FPS Doug. Okay, they get a gun in their hands and it just automatically goes to someone's head. It's ridiculous, Sorry, I just got a message. Okay, this guy's aim is sick. All right, that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying his aim is sick. And MZeno, apparently MZeno was. Someone said he was like statistically one of the worst players in the top 30 teams or something, and now he's like just doing amazing. That's a pretty solid nade, by the way. Bro, listen, okay, I dare you, get 3 bots and put them at different angles and pull out a Galil at mid-range and try and kill 3 bots with a spam, okay? You're not doing it because you don't know the Galil spray. What everyone does is they copy the AK spray because it's kind of close to the Galil, and then they kind of just like, okay, maybe this is just showing that I don't really like play in the last like couple years. Like I play very casually now. I feel like nobody ever knows the Galil spray. They just kind of like, they're just like, oh, well, it's kind of like the AK, and then you're like 30 bullets in, you're like, okay, well, we're done now. We're like, well, I'll just see if I can figure it out on the way. Okay, there's something on this map that Austin showed me yesterday, and he's sick, so he can't make a video on it. So I'm not going to tell you about it, but it's really hard because it's super cool, and I really want to say what it is. But I can't, I'm not going to leak it before Austin says it, at least, like, right? Like, it's just not it's like not cool. But I'm like, I just can't say it. I've just got to like hold it in. Nothing's happening. Nothing weird happening. Okay, by the way, I saw this earlier. People were complaining about the final call on this map. People were complaining about it. It is common not to have an A player at the beginning of rounds. Now, C9 was the original team that I remember really popularizing this, because C9 would almost universally start nobody A, and they would have an insanely good mid take, and they would never lose mid. And then once the spawns changed, I think teams play a dedicated A player a lot more often, but some teams do, some teams don't. And Astralis opened up with nobody A, and it looks like to me, this feels like there's a good chance that Astralis, I don't watch Astralis very much. I prefer to watch teams that are actually good, like the Mongols. To me, it looks kind of like that Astralis probably play nobody A very often, if I was to guess, because Mongols are just literally just double lurking A. That's not something you see very often. Now, you could factor into it, I think this is the type of situation where you're not expecting an op, and if you're not expecting an op, this does feel like a really cool play where you can just double walk out A. If they have a solo A player, you're in a pretty decent spot, and if they don't have an A player, well, obviously it's going to be empty, and there's no opportunity potential, because that is a major factor in the way you have to play on Ancient, is that the major factor is that you could walk into an op A. And if that's no longer a possibility, then you're not too, you don't have to think about it too much. Now, bro here, there's two things that need to be happening. He needed to be trying to put some pressure, but also not dying, right? Because as soon as he dies, the round's basically over. But if he doesn't put any pressure there, then it becomes painfully obvious that the retake is coming from A main and coming from Donut. So he was kind of trying to do his best there, but the fact that he was getting flanked the entire time, there's honestly almost no possibility for them to win that unless the retake from A main came faster, and that retake was just way too slow for them to have any opportunity to win that. So despite it being a 3v3, basically they had almost no chance of winning unless bro just happened to kill the player on site. If he killed the player on site when he got peeked, then he might have pushed into site, and then it maybe was winnable. But kind of disaster start right now, by the way, for Astralis, because they just lose the first gun round, and not only that, but they lose it and the T's have 3 alive. So the T's already, look how much money the T's have already built up. This permanently tilts me. It really does. So they're trying to get something done with both rifles. Device is getting boosted over. There's a nice little gap there you can kind of see through, and you can get some information, and sometimes they won't even see you back. And then on this side, A is easy-ish to retake, so you can always go for the retake. The question is, what are you trying to do in a 5v5 retake in a situation like this? Now, conventional wisdom is that you should go for it, but I don't know. Not that I don't think you should go for it, period, but I think you want to... Ooh, that was close. Okay, but you want to go for it, I feel like, as if it was like a gun round, where you're pretty much, basically, you're just ready to give up. Because I think holding on to those guns, even though, like, conventional wisdom is that you're going to be able to buy next round no matter what, so it doesn't matter if you lose these guns. You may as well take the chance to win. Good, fair, good point. Right, yes, I agree. However, it's, MR12, which means you don't have much time to recover from bad economy. So if you can hold on and have a little bit more money, so you're not fully bought out in this round, right? So if you lose this round, you still have a chance of like buying next round. It's also important. Although getting 3 kills is in itself important, so you could argue in any direction. I just feel like you want to go for the retake, but you also want to be able to like be very willing to bail and hold on to those 2 M4s if you can as well. So fairly standard round here. If we look at what happened, they're going for control of jump. I know what that's cat. I think people call it cat. I know what that's called. I've heard it so many fucking times, dude. Sometimes I forget. And then I look like the biggest idiot, and people are like, "Vu, have you never played this map before, ever?" And it's like, no, man. Sometimes you just forget. Okay, when you're live, dude, when you're recording, so this is hard. Okay, the catwalk, they jumped up, they were trying to fight lane, they had flashes, they had support, really nice spray transfer from Stair. and Blitz is just not ready for the second player, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, well, now we've got an op in the hands of Device. Where's Device gonna bring it? He brings it mid-diddle. Mid is nice. I mean, it's nice in that you can hold on to it. You have a lot of options later in the round, but if they go for a fast play, it can be a little bit awkward because you don't have that much you can do because you're just going to get smoked off. You can go through it. Maybe you can get a kill. But one of the nice things about starting your op in red is that you can quickly rotate it over to B on some rounds, and that is a very powerful rotation. To have a third player rotate over to B is good. But having that third player be an opper is extra good because it's a little awkward. It's just a good angle for an opper. And you want to have that happen sometimes where you rotate that third player off of red into B quickly. Like, not quickly, but you like set up mid early and then you pivot them over, because otherwise your opponents can just do some kind of comfortable delay B hits. knowing that, you know, you only have 2 players there. So here, one of the keys here, 9-10 gets spotted with the op, but you're going to notice Astralis doesn't over-rotate over because this is part of conditioning, right? He's been spotted here somewhat often, and if we remember the first gun round, 9-10 was here, with an op? A couple of gun rounds here ago, I think he was here with an op and his team was hitting A, right? Like, you have to show this type of presence, and in pugs, though, if your opponents ever see an opper on B ramp, they're probably going to be over-rotating. Unless you've shown it a bunch of times and not gone. But Astralis, they pivoted, right? They did rotate, but that is actually the biggest key difference I noticed in, like, coordinated... not even... is it? Just one of the biggest differences I see between really low level and decently high level, like, you know, face of 10 plus games, is the idea of a rotation. Because a rotation, the word describes what we're talking about. It's a rotation. So, for example, you might have the A. This is not the greatest map to describe it, but you might have, this is a good map actually. Okay. So you might have like an opper here, you might have the rifler A, and you might have, you know, 2 players B and 1 player mid. So the idea of a rotation is that if you rotate, it's not the A player rotates all the way over to B, although, you know, sometimes that'll happen. What a rotation means is, again, extrapolate this to a bunch of maps. The something happens B, the opper might pivot over to B, and the A player might pivot over to donut. So you basically you pivot your hold. So you have a good hold, but you accelerate the rotation, so the closest player rotates, and then the furthest player pivots to cover the position that the rotator left. Not be necessarily exactly in that position, but to cover it, so at least you don't have, like, no hold in that position. Okay, so just on some pistols here, they're gonna try and pop out B. They tried to throw a bit of a fake. Oh my god, bro, you seriously just cannot fucking die there. Oh my god. He just died to it. He just lost a jiggle battle against a fucking Glock. Bro is actually playing really good this tournament too. Bro is an underrated pickup in that I've almost seen nobody talking about Bro, but he does seem to be doing really fucking good. And I think, like, when you looked at his stats prior to being picked up, it was like, who the fuck is this? And his stats were not very good either. And it was like, what is this pickup, right? It was like kind of wild. But he's overperformed 100%, and he's just looked pretty fucking good, to be honest. Okay. So they're gonna go for a fast B play. And so one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that typically, or technically, like, if you're playing as a CT, the easiest way to play B is just to molly ramp every round, like close ramp, because this molly Bro is throwing is actually going to allow opponents to get ahead of that and to potentially pressure ramp and do something like a B rush. But the reason, this is the reason that these deep mollies are important. And the reason, so I mentioned in a previous review that teams take a while typically to adjust to changes. And the reason they take a while is because there's a whole structure around the way and the reason people throw nades. Like, if you throw a certain molly, that actually is likely going to impact your entire CT side. So, for example, if you throw that deep molly that they threw at B, that means you're slightly weaker to B rushes, which means you're probably going to have to start a third player B a little bit more often than otherwise, or you're going to have to pivot a third player over to B once in a while, because again, in theory, you're weaker to B rushes. So, for example, if you were to be really weak to B rushes, you might just start mollying B ramp very consistently. But that's going to make you a lot weaker in other areas of the map. And if you're weaker in other areas of the map, then you're going to have to start pivoting you're weaker. What you're going to be weak against if you're just mollying like close B ramp very early consistently, you're going to start being weak to delay B hits. Right? So you're going to have then you might start having this guy red pivot over to B to stop the delay B hits a little bit more often. There's a lot of things. I don't want to go through a list of like all of the potential situations, but the idea is that plays that you make not only impact your position, but also because of the way they impact your position, they impact every position on the map, and then you have to start pivoting, like changing the way you're playing frequency-wise to adjust for that, right? And those types of changes take a little bit more work than just changing a Molotov that you don't want to throw anymore. They're also going to affect timings for you and your team, because if someone could get somewhere 5 seconds earlier, then a rotate might need to be there 5 seconds earlier. And if a rotate needs to be there 5 seconds earlier, then a setup they're playing might not work anymore because the timing is very specific. Anyways, device alone in mid, this can be fairly risky. In fact, this is insanely risky, especially against pistols. But I think what might have happened here is they might have been expecting a buy, and then he gets into this spot, and then he's like stuck. Because they could just come through catwalk here. He's got nobody in donut. Of course, the donut pivoted over, I think, because there was pistol spamming the smoke. So they're really worried about this A-pop. But this is, I don't like this. Yeah, this is what you needed. So this is why Snout's probably pushing here. Because Device is kind of on an island here. And if they start coming through mid and... Like, mid, he's great. He's going to get 2, maybe 3, and then he's going to die. That's perfectly fine. And they can pivot over to deal with that. But if they start coming through both sides or just walk out like cat in the mid... it's a problem, right? It's a big problem. So this aggression from Snout is like kind of very important. And he's able to see down this line now. And the T's, they're not getting very much done on these ecos. Like, they had a good, really good start, but these ecos are not looking so hot. You don't need to win the ecos, right? It's really just about getting some damage done. Man, these sprays. Damn, son. Stound, by the way, has a really good series, too, which is not too common. Usually, Stound typically does do not that great. In playoff games, but I'm more interested in the Mongols here, because the Mongols, they just look good. They just look like, from what I've seen, they just look like a pretty good team. They've got a lot of, like, they've got some surprise plays where they catch people off guard. They've got some, you know, fundamentally, they make some really great plays too. That flash just landed behind Stound, by the way. That flash, I don't know, if there's a lot of stuff going on, it's hard to hear that flash, but still, I've heard that flash many times when I've been here, and it's just been like, okay. I don't even think he hears it. He's just pushing. That's part of the reason for this molly, by the way. I mean, this is obvious, but part of the reason for this molly is that to get through it, you have to smoke it, and then in order to smoke it, you're kind of cutting yourself off a little bit from support. So it's actually a lot easier for this player to get aggressive here. And this player, by the way, can... Again, another interaction is that if you're jumping up here fairly often, this player can also feel a little bit more empowered because he's got support a good amount of the time, which means even when he doesn't have support, there's the air that he could have support, and that means he can play a bit more aggressive and his opponents aren't going to be trying to isolate him nearly as much, right? The same thing goes with like doubling Cheetah, stuff like that. So Device jumps up. They both hit each other, which is fine. Just a bit awkward. Felt like Device just like rushed that shot, it felt like, and should have probably died if we're being honest. But then the pivot back over to Donut. This is a pretty solid angle for an Opera to move back into. You can catch them coming out A, but the problem is that you can just get smoked off, right? So it's a bit awkward, but it looks like Bro probably has some idea what's going on, that they're rotating back, because Device is walking in with his Deagle out. Why is he walking in with his Deagle out? I think there's something I'm missing here. Like, I feel like this is me being crazy. So he wants to avoid the shadow, so he walks around, and then he just pulls out his Deagle. I guess because he's worried that people could be pushed out on the left or the right side. Okay, yeah, so I think this is what's happening. Okay. So what's happened is they've lost this timing. In fact, I bet Yabi just heard them running an A main because they were just running, weren't they? So they've lost this timing. So Device comes in, and they know that because Yabi just heard them running around an A, he knows that they're going to be pushing out A. And this rotate back super safe rotate where he's taking forever to rotate. This is the type of rotate you're going to make when you know that A is clear and you're just trying to get there safely, because I think this guy starts walking. So Yabi's watching, like, worried about the back, and Device knows that they could literally be walking through A and be like in CT right now because they had a huge gap where they had nobody A. So he's worried about players on both sides. And because it's a 3v4, he still wants to try and get something done. I guess he's thinking that maybe he can find a timing. I still feel like I would just prefer if he just stayed in donut with his op and like maybe tried to catch someone like on the side here. But he's also, I guess, what is he worried about? Is he worried that he's getting flanked mid? He must be worried that he's getting flanked through mid, like someone walked up here and is coming donut behind him. Because otherwise he just stays donut and just like holds that angle. I don't know. It's a bit odd. But yeah, once he does, that round's over. Although if he was just alive, right, then Yabi has he kills the guy flanking A main, and then they have, well, it's still not a great retake because you have so little control of anything. The retake is still not feeling too hot. Because you have to retake like all of Temple, CT, all this stuff. Even though Mongols weren't actually there, you still have to worry about it because they could be there, and that extra time you spend clearing all that shit is just loses you the round basically. All right, 1v3 from Blitz, instantly destroyed. Expected. Yeah, an attempted change of pace up B ramp, and that's the type of play you might be thinking about going for if you know that that Astralis is not tripling B very often, which they really weren't, and they're not throwing like the close molly or close nades. They're throwing that deep utility that they've done to try and take lane, very often. So you can come back with a response like that, where you go for a fast B play, you get ahead of their nade, ahead of their molly, and you catch a player kind of alone. Because of the way Astralis has been playing, mostly has been a dedicated player playing pretty aggressive in Cheetah, not a third player there, and they've been mollying deep a lot of the time, and they've been going for lane control. So the play makes a lot of sense conceptually. Oh, Device just saw him there. Damn. Awkward. All right. Pistol round. These are super high skill, right? Fast 2 smokes from T-spawn. I think those are going to land. I'm guessing they were supposed to land short and long, or maybe just cave and long. And then they were going to go for, flash through. This is like, flashing through to clear long. People, when I play like matchmaking specifically with like lower level players, people are like, oh, there's a smoke here. They still act as if that smoke is a wall, especially on pistol round, man. Jumping through a smoke with a flash is so fucking strong. And not only that, but long on Ancient, it's like almost impossible to dodge any of the flashes that your opponents are throwing. It's just, you're so fucked. Like, I feel like people don't even do, like, they don't do that enough, especially if you find the right timing. That's what that molly's for. The molly prevents from like a second and third player from being there in time to prevent that from happening. Or, because if a second or third player is there, you can kind of get trapped, right? Because you jump through and you're here, you're shooting this guy, and then this guy peeks out on you, and you're like running straight at him. You can kind of get screwed by that. So very similar situation to what Mongols did is that Astralis going for lane control. They threw a bit of utility in middle, right? They're trying to fake a bit of mid lane control, but here's the difference: 9-10 has an op, and they know that, and they know. I mean, this is risky because he's op, no armor, but they know that a strong play against a setup that doesn't have an op is exactly this. But 9-10 has an op, so he peeks out and he gets his kill on Bro, which is huge. And that's the type of metagame stuff that you're thinking about when you're thinking about high-level CS, where you know what players are strong in this situation and you try and play against it. Sorry, let's see what happens on the other side of the map. I was looking away for a second. Okay, so the pick happens. then Astralis is just going to respond by trying to walk up B, trying to catch a player off guard. They know the utility is not going to be that high on this type of buy because third round, you actually don't have that much money, right? You have 19 plus 24. So you have 43 less any kills. And if you bought anything, like even a flash P250, which is very, NACS, buy way too much on like a eco, you've got even less. So you just actually don't have that much utility to deal with these sorts of walk-in trade plays. And if you take the sight off of that, you're not going to have a ton of utility for a retake either. And you're going to be retaking with an op that, in this case, doesn't have armor, and they might be able to tell that based on how many kills they've got this half, that he couldn't possibly have armor. So if that went well, that was a really good play for like kind of setting up. Sometimes plays are like, you can take the risk on the play. It's like if this play works, the retake is just going to be terrible. So we can go for this play that is like risky, but if it works, it wins us the round. And then it looks terrible because it loses, but it's actually, made a lot of sense. Damn, 910's quick, dog. Damn, this man's quick. And it's hard. This is like a hard angle to flash too. This is not an easy angle to flash. I think there are flashes that are supposed to blind this player though. Are there not flashes that should blind this opper? Or are they pulling the typical like, oh, well, he opped there last round, so he's not opping there this round. I'm not crazy, right? There should be flashes that blind this guy, right? It definitely sucks if you're just doing an A hit and it's just like, okay, our first player is dead. Our first player's just gonna die. I mean, it's obvious that's why the player jumped around the corner like he did. He was trying not to die, but that angle is hard to flash acceptably. The slit in the roof, I think, is like, it's hard to get a flash. Wait, is this? Can you not just? I don't know, man. I can't remember, man. This is why, look, the reason I'm doing these demo reviews is because I want to start watching more Pro CS. Like, I want to watch more games. I want to update, like, my knowledge as much as possible. And this was a way to do it, right? That's why I'm doing these. I'm not, like, abandoning my main channel. I want to have a more active understanding of the pro scene. And what's common and what teams are doing, because that's going to make making main channel videos easier, because then I don't have to do all this. I try to verify to an unbelievable degree that, like, I've talked to other YouTubers and they're like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I will pull up, like, if I'm 90% sure of something, I will pull up the demos to make sure that I'm 100% sure of it before I ever say it in a video. And that just takes a lot of time. But if I was just watching, if I just was watching these games more consistently, then I wouldn't have to do that research, and I could release videos faster without having to waste all that time. That's kind of part of the idea. Anyways. That's a nice mid-molly. The aggression coming up from Astralis. You got to be quick on this utility set if the T's are throwing the smoke that they're throwing, which is the block off cheetah smoke. You got to find the right timing. That's a nice little flash. He's got a flash from mid as well, from Donut it looks like, and he just spams straight through. They get the control, and then Astralis is going to try and beat that control, because this control is cool, but they basically, or the way Techno 4K ran through, they're hard committing to clear this out, right? Which means it's going to be maybe 5 seconds before they can pivot back to mid. So Astralis have the option, they can try and go at A quickly, but MZeno here is probably going to respond with his smoke in short order so that Astralis can't move out A, because that's just like general map consistency, like overall map consistency. Strategic consistency. Austin had a word for this, and it was really good. I think it's just like crossmap. Yeah, crossmap consistency, where this player knows that the response now is likely to be coming out A, so he's ready to throw the smoke in a couple of seconds to delay so that this player can pivot over, and these players are going to pivot over to help cover mid. So Astralis need to be able to beat that timing, so they come out mid instantly and try and clear it out, and then they can prevent this rotate. Then this rotate becomes a lot more awkward, because instead of being able to rotate the way you want to rotate, which is rotating this way so that you can control this, and then you can pivot both ways and cover both sides, sites. Instead of that, if Astralis have control of mid, then this rotate becomes this really long rotate where you can easily gamble stack in the wrong direction. So Astralis go very fast out mid, and they do find the right timing, but Stare needs to find that kill. Yeah, he needs to be able to find that kill. If Stare finds that kill, then Senzu might even be backing up into B. He might, instead of like committing to the flank there. But still, the timing still gave them a 2v3, and 2v3s are relatively winnable because you're forced into 1v1s like that. Where MZino, if he had just lost that, then this round is very winnable. It's a 2v2. They probably know that they majority have A site control, and the round's pretty much in their favor for Astralis. So, you know, you can put yourself in these spots where just a couple 1v1s, a couple just engagements just go your way, and you're feeling pretty good. This is why I kind of prefer having a rifle in here, because he can fight out of this smoke a little bit more comfortably, where you can, the smoke comes down, they throw some utility, and he just pops through, and he actually fights out of this smoke. But you need to have a little bit of both, just because of the mobility of the op. Mobility of the op? Just because of the strength of the op when rotating into different sites. Then you see the weakness of having no A player. So 910's looking A, but he pivots back. And it's harder for the op to pivot back in either direction than it is for a rifler. So he just gets shot in the back. 2v2. Okay. They know Blitz is here, don't they? His Blitz was fighting in mid just a second ago. Maybe they thought... Maybe Sound just messes up this jump. Yeah. You should probably be able to do that jump without being seen. I know, that's wild. I feel like he just shouldn't be doing that. I feel like that's the play. I mean, the reward is big, right? Because if you get up there and they're like not looking at that exact moment, you do have a massive advantage, because they basically, in this case, if you know he's donut, he's like, if he knows you're on left side, he also is gonna be able to see. I don't know. The reward's big because they might know you're on left side, and then you can be in a spot where you catch them off guard while being on left side. Plus, he has to worry about Temple because his teammate pushed up to here, but someone could have already been in here. And this is a really nice crossfire here to here, but I don't know about that play. I don't know about that one, man. Molly's completely standard, by the way. You have to molly this off so that the CTs can't jump up and contest a catwalk too early. And then that allows, especially for this player to come through here, not having to worry about getting shot while he's coming through, and can put him into a pretty good spot. But this is the benefit, one of the many benefits of not playing an A player or having an A player that's ready to pivot over. And this is one of the benefits of not having it be your opper, because now he can, it's a little bit faster for this player to pivot back over. So probably they saw this smoke and this was the plan. Because you can have like early round plans where it's like, we're gonna do a light control in mid. If they do a delayed mid take, we're gonna fight. We're gonna like hard contest. So immediately MZino pivots over and they're ready to fight. 910, the smoke comes down. He nades out the smoke, so he gives a bit of a he draws a bit of attention, which allows MZino to peek out and catch people that are looking the wrong direction. Plus, Blitz can peek out at the same time. This is just like a really well played round. This is just like a really well played scenario, and that was most likely, I would say, planned from before, like as the round started. Like, we're gonna delay. We're gonna hard contest mid if they try and fight mid. And when I talk about in other demos where I'm talking about like building a half strategically, this is the type of thing that can be really hard to deal with, because Astralis is now gonna have to worry that, like, yeah, they might not even look like they're in mid, but they're ready to just like do this like hard recontest in mid, where we're gonna throw some utility. They're gonna kind of let us out a little bit, but then they're gonna catch us as we're like in the open still, not yet set up with control of mid. So then Astralis is gonna have to spend more time and resources worrying about that, or just not fight mid, and you end up in a kind of awkward spot. And here, this is exactly why Astralis, when you look at their CT side, they were so a lot of teams used to they'll just like some rounds they'll early smoke this. They'll just smoke this right off the bat, and some rounds they'll double molly and then they'll smoke it later. And one of the reasons you want to early smoke that sometimes is because of this. But this is Blitz either needs to smoke it himself or he needs to actually hard clear it, or the molly's missed. Yeah, the molly's just missed, didn't they? Yeah, so it's obviously just a miss molly. And the problem is that you have to be careful about the way you throw the molly now, or the way you do that now, because everyone knows about the gap, where if you stick your head through a smoke that's thrown next to a molly, that you won't be getting hit by the molly. So people started to actually abuse that with the spawn thrown smokes. So maybe teams aren't throwing those smokes as much anymore. I'm not 100% sure. By the way, in the comments, dude, if you guys just like are watching lots of games and you're like, yeah, this happens because X or this happens because Y, I fucking love to hear it, man. You know, I might say you're totally wrong and you're dumb in my head. I'm not going to say that to you unless you say something totally stupid, and rude. Or if you say something super rude. Some people are really fucking rude and they're like, how do you not know this? And then like when I did the review of like, is this pro team cheating, where there was that round in Vents where he like delayed the peak, and I was like, I'm not really, is this weird? Like, and I'm like reasoning it out to myself, and then I get a comment, I get like a comment that's like, wow, you really have no idea about the game, that's just totally normal. And then I'm like, okay, well, fuck. So I went and asked like 3 or 4 different, like a couple analysts and a couple different players, and everyone was like, no, that's even weirder than you made it out to be. And then I'm just like, dude, I just spent my fucking time and effort to go out because I'm not like, I'm not 100% sure I'm right all the time. I'm like, I try and figure this shit out. And it was just like, I just wasted everyone's time because this guy was a fucking dick. And I was just like, and I double checked and it was like, no, I was even nicer. Although to be fair, when I talked to one person about it, they were like, yeah, but that's just like I don't read too much into that because that's probably just like a mistake. And that's what I thought about it. That's what I had said. I was like, you know, it's really fucking weird, but that's probably just a mistake because it doesn't make sense if he's cheating. It doesn't make sense if he's cheating. And if it doesn't make sense as a play, and it doesn't make sense as a play if he's cheating either. And it was like, yeah, okay, well, that's the conclusion I came to. Anyways, just don't be dicks about it. If you think I'm wrong about something, or if you have the context behind something, okay? Because I can only tell you the reason I'm doing these fucking demos is because I haven't been watching Pro CS for like forever. Or like not forever, but like I haven't been watching a ton of pro games. Or at least what the problem is that I've been watching a good amount of pro games, but I don't know if it's just a me thing or what. But when I watch games, dude, the casters are so good, dude. I'm just like, I'm not analyzing. I'm just listening. I'm just having fun. I'm just enjoying the game. I'm just like, I'm enjoying the narratives. You know, the casters in CS are so fucking good, dude. I just enjoy watching. And then sometimes I just zone out and it's like, dude, how are we 14 rounds in? And like, I couldn't even tell you what happened on a single one of those rounds. And I'm just like, okay, well, let's hope the analysts can tell me what the fuck happened. Like, so that's literally the reason I'm doing these, okay? Like, I think I have a pretty good fundamental understanding of how CS is and should be played. And on some maps, in some situations, I've done a good amount of research, right? Like on Nuke, I've done a good amount of research on a lot of things, but I don't play that often either because, dude, you know how much it sucks? Like, you guys, when you guys get older, if you're young, if you get older, you're really going to understand what I'm talking about, where it really fucking blows that I, once upon a time, was, like, never pro, but, like, I was, in like 2018 or 2019, I was like 2,900 elo or something when the #1 player in North America was at like 3,100 elo or something because nobody had played, everyone was playing ESEA until like 2018. So once upon a time, I could shoot people relatively well. Like I was at a pretty good level. But now, dude, if I play, it's just like, dude, I can't even shoot people look in the wrong direction. So it's just like, Dude, you know how frustrating it is to play the game when you're that bad? And I just don't have like fucking, I'm just like, every time I play, I'm like, dude, I'm so much worse than I used to be. And it's like, why am I playing? I'm so fucking bad now. And it's like, then every once in a while, I'll be like, I'm gonna get good again. I'm not gonna get to the same level, but I'm gonna be like, you know, I'm gonna get to like a level where I can respect it. So I go hard for like a couple weeks, and then I'm like, dude, what am I doing, man? I have so much other shit I could be doing. Like, you know, making videos takes a lot of my fucking time. And it's like, I'm gonna make a video for 8 hours and then go grind CS for another 5 hours? Like, how am I supposed to live my fucking life, dude? Anyways, all this to say, there are some awkward interactions with the way smokes work now. I think maybe maybe teams aren't throwing the spawn smoke to mid as often anymore because players have been abusing that. And I watched a game, would you look at that, where Donk got the best T-half of all time. I think it was the best T-half ever, or like the best T-half recently, or the best T-half in an S-tier event or whatever, playing against, it might have been the Mongols. Oh shit, was it the Mongols? Who was he playing? It might have been the fucking Mongols. But he was playing against a team that played heavy in mid, but they were throwing the spawn smoke, and several times, were they throwing the spawn smoke, or did he smoke off their molly? I think they were throwing the spawn smoke, and he just popped his head through and killed the guy jumping up. You know, he just did that. You know, it's abusable. Okay, so longest game of all time, and the longest fucking random aside I've done all forever. Here is an Astralis B rush. So what do they know? Why are they doing this? Sounds leading. They do throw the early molly, but the smoke instantly popped through. Maybe they know that, oh, well, Mongols, I think, is a team that typically plays pretty heavy on mid, so it makes a lot of sense if you're playing a team that's playing pretty heavy on mid that you can go for some faster B hits, because they're likely to try and cover up the fact that their B is weak by playing a guy that jumps up, and if he jumps up, he's not going to be able to stop the actual B rush itself. But these are 2 kills that Astralis just need to be getting. I think Device just, that's the IGL debuff. Really, I think it is. That's just the IGL debuff. I mean, he's probably looking at his radar. This is why I give Cadian a lot of a big break, and people like shit on me for this, but I used to op IGL, and I can tell you that essentially if I was op IGLing, the first month or 2 that I would play on a team, I would just not be able to frag at all, which, by the way, makes like trying out for a team almost fucking impossible, because like it's like he's a good IGL, but he's a terrible opper, and it's like, yeah, because when you're the amount, you can't afford to look at the radar as much as you need to, because an opper you need to lock down an angle. You know, you need to be staring at your screen ready to react, right? And then if you're opping, that just means you're not ready to shoot someone, you know? And even just thinking about what you need to be calling, what you should be doing, all of this shit, it just makes it a lot more awkward. It just makes opping a fucking 100,000 times harder. And you can be a good opper, even though you're calling, but you need to have a high comfort level with your team, and your team, you need to know the way your team acts and reacts in a lot of situations. So I give Cadian a huge break, because not only is he IGLing on a new team, but it's clear that the team is having some problems where they're not on the same page. So so basically that almost guarantees there's likely not going to be a situation where he's not having to consult his radar to know what his team is doing. When you get back to being I feel like when you get to being a good opper again while IGLing is around the time that you just start knowing your team really well, and it's like, okay, so they're going to be here in this situation, this is how they're reacting to these situations, and I can just call, you know, I can just quick double check, and I already know the call I'm going to be making because I know the situation we're going to be getting into, right? Where you stop having to think like super hard, you stop having to really like, you know, do all that shit. Okay. Anyways, Astralis, heavy mid take. Cool. the Mongols are a team that likes to go heavy mid, so the heavy mid take does make sense. Then they're going to try and turn this into an A split. I mean, the mid take for Astralis has been going, it's been having varied success, obviously. It's been going well and poorly. So you can go back for it and look to get something. Oh my God, they're actually already shooting bodies. Like, the round's still going. It's not even like nearly at, oh, if he had hit that shot, this round was super winnable. 2v4? I don't know about that. That would have been a nice shot though. And it would have actually turned this scenario very winnable. So as far as I can tell, the Mongols are just good in, like, overall, I feel like. They've got a good offer, 9-10s, hitting a lot of shots. Strategically, the plays they're making make a ton of sense. They're not doing anything crazy. It doesn't feel like they're relying on, like, luck to get these plays done. They're just doing a pretty solid job overall. All right, so again, Mongols are going to go for that, like, slight delay. They're going to let, because Astralis is throwing, are they throwing this smoke off spawn? I know a lot of teams were throwing that for a little while, this smoke off spawn that, or are they manually throwing this? Looks like a manual throw. Smoke off the molly. And with that smoke off the molly, especially with CT mollies being so small now, you can really easily smoke that off and then move through. Yeah. Making a lot of sense. It's all making a lot of sense. It's a rich tapestry. That phrase doesn't make any sense. In any case, Astralis is just getting, this feels like exactly what happened when I look at that Sashi demo. And by the way, everyone is telling me you don't cook sashimi, which was kind of the joke, guys. Like, I'm, you know, well, if you don't know that, like, I'm a, you know, I love sushi and, you know, I've been to Japan and all that, then I guess it is fair to assume that I don't know that sashimi isn't cooked, but it was a joke, guys. I know sashimi is uncooked. But when they were playing Sashi, it felt like a lot of the same, where Astralis was literally just, in a lot of scenarios, they were just not delivering the kills that they need to deliver. Like, getting double entry'd all the time, getting sprayed down by rifles. And some of it you could argue is like spacing wasn't perfect, which is sure, like spacing is like generally not perfect for Astralis. But usually it's like pretty good, right? There's like not huge issues. They're just like, a lot of the time just seem to be fucking not doing their jobs. All right, so 9-10, you have the option. You can focus this side, but you're smoked off, or you can start moving forward to focus this side, or you can try and back all the way up, but that's not really a reasonable option. But the problem with this is that if the T's have good spacing, you shouldn't be able to get more than one, right? You should be able to get traded pretty quickly. And whenever you're fighting against an Opper, it's almost guaranteed that one of your players is going to die. I feel like people, sometimes they try and play so that none of their players die to the Opper, but when you try and play so that none of your players die to an Opper that's holding an angle, in these kind of chaotic situations, especially with like donut and like close aim in, if you try and play so that nobody dies, a lot of the time what you end up doing is you end up creating a scenario where you lose, because your first guy dies and he's trying not to die, so the rotate isn't there in time, or like the trade isn't there in time. This is a really fast pivot from, oh yeah, MZeno hears it. They've got 2 players red room, which is one of the reasons that having your op red room is great, because you can nade this smoke and then get a kill through the smoke, and then he can push through, and you can push through there so safely now, because that molly that Astralis didn't throw, but they did eventually throw, it becomes really chaotic. It becomes really awkward, because you can stick your head through and not get mollied. I'm not sure if teams have actually found like a solution to that though, because the initial obvious solution was to start throwing your smoke deeper. So you throw the smoke so that it lands here, and then you molly behind it. But then that creates the opening here, which is, you know, just as bad of a situation, right? It's like actually not exactly a better spot than otherwise. And the molly does kind of push the Opper back. You know, he can try and find the position, but sometimes in trying, in the process of finding that position, you end up giving your opponents time to kill you because it takes a second to find the exact spot and you're kind of in and out of the smoke. It can kind of be problematic. Yeah. So a lot of people were talking about this game like losing 4v3 after plants and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, that was just a really good, like the setup that Mongols was in was a really good setup to try and force a retake. And nading the smoke, I mean, it seems like the general response to smokes getting naded is to ignore that possibility and hope that they don't find the right timing. That seems to be how I see people. It's like, yeah, so you got a smoke down, and they could nade it. So what are we gonna do? You just hope that they don't nade it when you're behind on the other side of it. I mean, you can throw like flashes to like blind people on the other side of it, which is useful. But to some extent, you kind of just do have to hope that you either trade on the player or they don't find the right timing. But in fact, the way 910 fucked up his nade, because his nade landed too deep, so he barely even saw through it, made like any possibility of him dying in return almost impossible too. So Astralis loving this like flash through that top smoke because Mongols are throwing that top ramp smoke. And that top ramp smoke I do really like that top ramp smoke because you can set up some like pop plays into B site through that smoke really effectively. And you can have players like solo lurk out sometimes too through that smoke. You can have them just, you know, walk through that smoke if rounds are going poorly. I wouldn't do that at the beginning of a round, but if like a round's breaking down, you can have someone kind of like walk through that smoke. But Senzu waits for the flash, then turns back around. I mean, he's partially waiting for the flash. He's partially like covering the other side. But you can do both at the same time. Like both are, oh my God. I feel like that's a peak that Yabi should, yeah, Yabi's definitely generally supposed to be winning that, but Senzu does just fucking laser beam him. Although I just have to imagine that Yabi should just, no matter how fast he kills you, you're supposed to have enough of an advantage on a player that has 50 health that you just kill him, I think, right? Senzu has 50, he's walking and he's got 35 health. And he's got the shadow advantage. I don't know what Yabi's moving forward for. That made this even more awkward if he's just at the back. Maybe he's trying to make his head harder to see, but like he should just, I don't know. That's what I'm talking about. Like, Astralis is just losing duels that like you can't win games if you're losing fights like that. And it was again a really nice shot from Senzu, of course. Nice spam from Stair. That's one of the hardest things to do that people underrate. I've always talked about this, that one of the reasons that people struggle with spray control is that they get too used to spraying against a wall with instant feedback. And when you get immediate feedback, you're going to subconsciously be, you know, adjusting your spray based on the feedback of where your bullets are actually at. But when you have no feedback or minimal feedback when you're at, because, you know, that's what's going to be happening when you're fighting people at range, you're going to have much smaller much less obvious feedback. Then you end up whiffing and you're like, well, when I spray, like when I practice spraying, I seem so good, but in game I can't spray. And it's because of the way you're practicing is like kind of fundamentally flawed. I think practicing spray transfers is probably one of the best ways to practice your spray, because then you need to actually know where in your spray you are at any given time. It kind of like limit tests your spray ability. And through smokes can be pretty effective too, although you get some feedback now, but you don't get a ton of it. All right, so nothing hyper aggressive, and I think Yabi did he do what I was talking about before? He starts mid. No, he actually starts Cheetah. They're gonna double Cheetah because Mongols have been playing fairly aggressive on the B side. And because Astralis have established like this ramp aggression, even though the ramp aggression has been somewhat shut down, they're still, you know, generally worried about it more so than they might otherwise, and that can allow other things to work pretty well. And this spray, by the way, really effective spray, because look where it's spraying. It's spraying the player on this close box here, which is an angle people do like to play quite often, especially if you're not mollying it consistently. And I don't think Astralis has generally been doing that deep molly. I think they do more of the... They were doing a bit of the deep molly in the... If you remember the first CT half, they were doing quite a bit of that deep molly, but it seems like they've moved away from it now. Maybe that's, you know, for a reason. Device probably is not supposed to win that duel, but he probably is supposed to just fall off. Although, I mean, Astralis is just leaving him here kind of on his own quite a bit, like somewhat alone. He's got some support from Yabi, but then Yabi's running away. So they have a lot of confidence in Device, which makes sense why they would end up losing this series if they have a lot of confidence in Device's ability, and Device is kind of not calling around. This is something IGLs do a lot. It's like a very standard IGL thing, and I think it's just comes with the territory, because it's so much easier to say, it's so much easier to say I'm flashing you out than, hey, can you throw X flash and pop me out? Especially because there's also a delay in the timing, right? Where it's like you have to wait for your teammate to do it, whereas you can just set up and do it. It's going to take like 2 seconds less. In this same scenario where you leave yourself in an awkward situation, and it's like not, you know, it's like I could die here, but I'm going to take the risk myself because I know that if I take this risk, I'll be able to play off this information and not have to wait for the comms to come in to tell me the information. Then I'll have all of the information I need, right? Like, I think it's just kind of an IGL thing where you take some risks and you put yourself in more supportive and slightly sometimes weaker situations that instead of your teammates. Even though as an opera, I feel like you probably, a lot of the time, you don't necessarily want to be the guy doing those things if you're like a Device level opper. But I don't know. They seem to like to play him in mid like this, so it's not like unintentional. I'll have to look at some other teams. I'll look at some more. This is like my first Ancient demo I've reviewed on this, but I'll have to look at how exactly they're doing this and what's up with it. What's up with it? So is this just a solo aggression? Are they're sending 9-10 through the molly? Oh, because Yabi's constantly throwing this like slightly delayed nade. He's trying to catch that angle on Yabi. Oh, yeah, you do have to. Those are plays that I think are important to make sometimes. You know, it's a risky play. It could go wrong, which it does. But if it goes right, it's one of those plays where it's like, if this goes right, we can just turn this round into a win, like, very quickly. And if it goes wrong, we're not in an unwinnable position. You know, 4v5, we've lost a bit, but we still have plenty of control. Now we've lost the round, but, like, you know, even if you're doing well, you know, you're thinking more so that you want to make those plays when you're doing poorly because you need to take a risk. You want to try and take a bit of a risk and get your team back, you know, get your team a chance into a round where you're not typically doing well. However, you can also just do it on when you're doing well too, because it punishes it's oppressive. You know what I mean? It feels like then, even though you're already losing, I'm not in this case, but I'm talking about just generally, even though they're already, you know, your opponents might already be losing, they're like, oh, well, I found something that kind of works. And then you take that away from them, and it can be extremely hard to deal with, like very oppressive. So somehow I get the vibe that Device is going to lose this, even though this is obviously not something he should lose. Device. So yeah, they are just like, they are just accepting that this opera could get a kill. I mean, in this case, it makes sense because they're playing pretty silent. They're trying to get something done where their opponents aren't ready for it, right? Because Mongols could be setting up like a delayed mid take here, although because of the way Astralis is playing, it does become fairly clear what is likely happening at this point. Unfortunately, though, Device doesn't have a smoke. Does he just not? Did he? He must have already used it, I guess. Yeah, he probably threw the fast mid smoke. I don't know. There was a while where it felt like every team was throwing this smoke all the time, I felt like. And now teams still throw it, but I feel like it's thrown less. But I would have to look at the actual data for that, because I haven't watched a million games. Yeah, so they should be getting a vibe that, well, the thing is, they could be setting up behind the smoke. Some teams are just going to be waiting out the smoke. Although it looks like so far what I can tell is that Mongols are a little more aggressive than that. But yeah, because if Mongols just start throwing utility, they don't know where Device is. And when you're that slow, you want to be very careful about throwing utility to set things up, because your opponents can see the utility coming, and they could, for example, have Device here and a player here, and that player can pivot over, and then you're dealing with two players on the site take, and that's part of what makes site takes on A very awkward, because having to deal with two players, plus the fact that you can flash over from mid so effectively to get a guy out through this smoke or through this smoke, that can be very hard to actually deal with, right? People love that spam, but I do feel like I get spammed back through it more than I spam through it. Like I get spammed back so much more often. Especially, I mean, if you're doing it with an A1S, it's a little bit less uncomfortable, but there's like only one line you can really be at. Damn, if Yabi had hit that first shot, he didn't like hard whiff, but he could have gotten that kill. If he had gotten that kill, that would have been like a very winnable round. It's too bad. Okay, so Stera's gonna get aggressive here. I like teams that don't throw the molly when they get aggressive, because that used to be, again, that used to be something that was very common, throwing that early A molly, but not because of the molly change, I don't think, just because it's fallen out of favor. I think because of the way the spawn changes and the way teams are playing mid, it's fallen out of favor a little bit. Teams aren't throwing that molly anymore, which changes the way you want to get aggressive on A. But some teams, and this is very common, well, I've seen this a lot with like advanced level teams or ECL teams where they end up throwing that molly because they want to throw it when they get aggressive, and then you end up having to throw it a bunch of times to balance that out, and then you end up wasting your molly, and then it ends up being a little bit too readable when you have an A player and when you don't at the beginning of rounds, and then it just creates this whole can of worms, essentially. It creates this whole extra variable that you don't really love having to deal with. Anyways, 9-10, fast. That's going to be a fast door smoke, so they're either conditioning it or they're going to get aggressive. That's a fast door smoke, right? But Astralis throw their own lurk smoke. I think it's Astralis that's been throwing the lurk smoke, not Mongols, right? And, yeah. And that leaves a gap. Sometimes you can bait teams. I don't know if this is intentional, but sometimes you can bait players by throwing smokes. I actually know that there has been times that this has been done very intentionally, where you bait players by leaving a gap in a smoke, and then you bait them into trying to play around that gap, and then you kill them for playing around that gap. I've seen teams do that very intentionally before. I've seen it a few times on Vertigo A site, where teams have thrown a smoke with a gap. I can't remember exactly where the gap was, but I've seen a few different teams do that, where it's a commonly misthrown smoke, so you intentionally misthrow the smoke, and then you have someone post up on that gap, and you just get the free kill. It's actually really clever. Anyways, this is obviously why Device has been playing here with an op, because this is making a lot of sense, because otherwise you end up with a rifler here, and if you end up with a rifler here, then, well, if you end up with the opper here, he can get smoked off, which is a problem. If you have the opper here, this is really awkward, looking down and up. That's really awkward. So this is risky, but I can see why Device is doing it. And if you do it with a rifle, which is what you generally be thinking, and that's usually, I feel like, what I see here, but if you do it with the rifle, then you have to play a 1v1 aim duel, and that's very losable, right? You can absolutely lose an aim duel in this position, and he does, and that just deteriorates. The entire map is now in a very awkward position. So Senzu's gonna have to get there. You got to get aggressive. You got to like take some risks somewhere. So one of the things is Senzu's gonna be willing to take a risk here because he's still got a smoke. He can take a bit of a risk, look for that contact, and if it goes wrong, it's fine. But Astralis has just turned this into like the initial molly, like the initial control, they molly this off. Anyone could do that. In fact, you could do that. That's something you would do if you were crossing the mid so that you could go A, right? Or you could go, you could push whatever. So that molly doesn't give anything away. But then after that molly, they take that control, and then they take a little bit of control before they actually show that they're doing something. They show what they're doing. But like, man, every fucking player on Mongols is just over-delivering. Every time they're in an uncomfortable spot, they're forced. Like, this is a really uncomfortable spot for Techno. He gets pushed out. Stown sees him cross. Spacing's not good, though. Spacing's not good. Yeah, spacing's really bad. I mean, Stown sees him. Obviously what happens is Stown sees him cross here, and so Stown thinks he's got an advantage. But like, Device could flash. There's almost no way to dodge that. I just really don't like this. Yeah, so Stown sees him crossing, and maybe what he doesn't want is for Techno to get here, because if Techno gets there, then a flash over from either of these players can actually really fuck you up. But he's still got a little bit of time. It just feels like he kind of panics here, and you can't do this, because look where your next player is. Bro's throwing a nade. If Bro double clicks a flash here and starts running up, that would be great too. But he's throwing a nade. When you think about fucking spacing. When you think about spacing, you want to think about like almost like social distancing type shit, where it's like you want to be close enough. So you want to be close enough that you want to be within a few feet. Because one of the things you don't want is a scenario, which will often happen. You have scenarios where you're so close that the player in front either gets blocked by the player behind him if he ever tries to back up a little bit, or the player that they're fighting can just spray you both down. Which, you know, you can trade even if you're going to get sprayed down. You can still trade past that. It's not like impossible at all. But it does increase the possibility of you getting double killed, right? What you want is you want your opponent to spray right? You notice how there's that gap. You know, right? That gap between the two brats, right? That's where you want to catch them, right? Dude, I'm so fucking dumb. It's unbelievable. It's like I don't know why I do this shit, man. Anyway, when he's spraying, you want to catch him in that downtime, because as soon as he stops shooting, that's the timing you want to have where you peek out. Which means you want to have 4 or 5 feet, you know, like 3 steps between you is generally what you're going to be looking at. All right, 17-17. Where's this going? Who's going to win? We don't have any idea. I definitely didn't say who won. Do you guys prefer if I say nobody's watching at this point, by the way? So I'm just going to say, if you want a demo review, you should go to my Patreon. Someone in the comments said, nobody cares about your Patreon, nerd, in my last video. And I'm like, bro, why you got to be like that, man? It's not like I make a lot of money. Anyways. Nobody's watching. But if you're watching, do you prefer if I tell you the outcome beforehand or not? I feel like I shouldn't. I feel like these... I don't know. A lot of these demo reviews, I don't really care if these demo reviews get views. I'm doing it because I'm reviewing the game myself. The problem is, like, if I get enough hate for not knowing something that I should probably know and being honest about it, I'll probably stop doing them, because like I'm literally doing these because I'm reviewing shit. I'm reviewing these games. Like, I want to be reviewing more games, right? And so like the point is that I don't know all this shit. And the point is that I try and be upfront about whether or not I know it, you know? But anyways, the point isn't to like get a shit ton of views, but in theory, I know War Owl back in the day, he used to make these, and I actually attribute that as a major reason for his channel blowing up, is he used to do these demo reviews, and he would do them kind of like casted, but he would add his own like little input, right? It would be like somewhat casted, but he would also give like tips on what the pros were doing, which was really cool. It made it really entertaining. And he typically didn't rewind, which is generally just a good idea, not to rewind too much, but you know, sometimes I'm just interested, okay? He typically didn't rewind. You could almost buy that it was just someone casting, and he did a lot of the biggest games, and people loved it, and he got fuckloads of views on those videos, and I think that really helped with his channel expanding to a very wide audience. But he would just title them like whatever, Nip versus Fnatic, ESL final or whatever. And if I wanted to hit that audience, then probably I shouldn't be spoiling it, because, you know, I could do this in the same format and probably it would do better, but, you know, is that my plan? I don't know. I might try 1 or 2 of those. But that's not, I'm really having fun with the title and thumbnails. The thumbnails actually take like 20 or 30 minutes each, which isn't a lot. Really, it's not. But then when you add it all up, it's like 30 minutes where this is rendering, where I basically can't use my computer. Sometimes longer, like this is probably gonna be like 45 minutes. So maybe I should do this on my fucking stream PC or something. Maybe I should do it on my stream PC. So it's like 45 minutes or an hour recording, 30 minutes rendering, 30 minutes of the thumbnail, and then I'm uploading for 20 minutes, which is like, you know, it's like 2.5 hours per, which is a lot. When, you know, I'm trying to work like 8 hours or whatever, 8 or 9 hours. It's like I'm not trying to work all day every day, which is a habit you get into if you make YouTube videos. Not to complain, but it's like there really is no moment where it's like, yeah, I couldn't be making more money if I was doing work right now. Anyways, for anybody, sorry, dude, these really do turn into fucking shit shows. But if you think that I shouldn't be spoiling these before the game, then you let me know. I even feel like I spoiled them in the title. But I don't know. Do you guys care? Like the point of this is, well, the problem is you guys, if you're watching this, probably don't give a shit. But it might, maybe more people would care if I didn't do that. I don't know. Point of this is I'm just doing this is like I'm doing this so I can learn, and I'm bringing you guys along for the journey. And that's why I don't give a fuck about the title and thumbnail. Well, I do. I just make them the funniest shit possible. But I don't really care about the title and thumbnail because the point is that I'm doing this anyways. That's why I'm doing this. Anyways, retake. A site after post-plant positions is a thing that I really need to be looking at more, because I haven't really gone in depth. So I'll tell you, like, I like to study CS, and so what I'll do is, like, I'll go in and I'll just look at, like, let me give it 100 post plants. Where do each team, like, where do people play in post plants, and how often do you win with each of these setups? And then I'll, like, kind of build that out to really understand exactly how every possible post plant works. I don't think most people do that. Most people probably play the game a lot, and then they get a vibe of what is good and what is bad. And I get the same vibe, but I just like having the data. You know, I do also just enjoy knowing for sure and being able to cite, like, hey, here's why I know. Like, here's why I know Blame F looks like a baiter. The reason Blame F looks like a baiter is because I took 3 full days, I swear to God it was like fucking 12 hours a day, going through 6 months of demos in 2022, I think. 6 months of demos of all the top pro teams and calculating out manually how often players went for entries against gun rounds, against ecos, what their KD was against gun rounds, against ecos, all this shit. I like to have the data on that. I like to know for sure, you know? Instead of going, because if you go for a vibe check, then when people are like, Vu, you have no idea what you're talking about, then I'm like, maybe I don't have any idea what I'm talking about. And then I go refer, I'm like, hey, 5 other people that I know, can you tell me, like, just make sure that I'm not fucking high on crack? And they'll be like, yeah, you're not high on crack. And then I'll be like, damn, I just wasted my time and effort thinking I was high on crack, when in fact, it's only Adderall. Dude, how did we get here? How did I get to this? What am I fucking talking about, dude? Okay, so, okay. So Techno's on the weak side of the map. He could have considered lurking through that smoke, but they're already 4v5. If he died, it's kind of over. And this is a similar situation. If you remember back to the first half, they were actually in a 5v4, I believe. They got the kill on A, and Techno managed to get the lurk to flank that turned into a round win because of that flank. It was like, and then they saved it was like first gun round, I think. So it's a very similar situation. He's looking for a timing to get out. Bro did not see him. And he's going to be able to get the flank, but it does rely on this A side. This A side is fairly weak, and it's fairly clear that they're probably going this direction, and they have to get out. Device, man. Yeah, and then that's the problem. If that bomb planter gets killed planting, they're kind of fucked. However, if 910 gets this kill, 910, they said you were good, and this is going to go into double OT now? This is going to go into another OT, isn't it? This goes into another OT, I think. Does it? No. It ends in the 20s. Both teams are in the 20s in this game. If 910 gets that kill, they just go B. It's just over. Well, over? It's over. It's Jover, guys. It's Jover. If he gets that kill, they just go B, and it's like, well, it's hard to retake 2v2 on B. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's not easy. Blanking ain't easy. Bro's got that spam like a bunch of times, man. Goddamn. Okay, Techno is alone now. And this is such an awkward situation to be in because you can get spammed, and also you can get peeked from ramp, and also this guy's he's eventually inevitably gonna peek you. You're kind of in, I hate this spot, but this is like the essence of being a lurker, is being in spots like this and being good at playing your, like figuring out a good way out of it. It doesn't mean need to work every time, but if you play too scared, like if you just played like this every round, then your opponents just have so much control that it can really fuck with the way that your team can play the game. So sometimes you need to be able to be in situations like this and still find a way to take a risk that works a decent amount of the time. That's what a lot of players miss out on, I think, is that you need to, in spots like that, in theory, you just want to be safe. In theory, you just don't want to die. And more often than not, that is the case. You just want to not die. But if you play too safe too often, then your opponents are going to be able to do a lot of things that they're going to have more control and more timing tells. They're going to be able to take more map control, and they're going to be able to track you throughout the map more so than you want them to be able to. Anyways, this was easily the wildest demo review I've done so far because there was several things that I just wasn't sure about. And then there was also, I just got so off track, dude. I don't know what I'm doing, man. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Leave the feedback if you want. Go ahead. I do appreciate anybody that watches these. If you want to sub to my Patreon, that'd be great. But you know, if you don't, that's fine too. You should join my Discord though. And it's actually, okay, subscribe to my Patreon. Who cares about that? If you ever see my main channel videos recommended to you, click on it and watch the whole thing. If you don't want to sub to my Patreon, just click on my main channel videos whenever you see them posted and watch the whole thing start to finish. Don't skip the ad or skip the ad, but the watch time, it actually does matter. That's like one of the most, people disagree about what's most important on YouTube. That's one of the most important things, in my opinion, on YouTube, the watch time and watch percent. If you watch the whole and that's why my ads kind of screw my videos over, because my videos are like 9 minutes long and a minute of it is an ad. So I already lose 15% watch time just from the fucking ad because everyone just skips the ad. And it really actually kind of fucks everything up. It would be so much better if I made like 20-minute videos and had a minute ad, because then it would only be like, half the watch time, right? But anyway, what am I talking about, dude?